Hope everybody's doing well today. I wanted to do a video today to show you how to make a freestanding skeleton. Now, starting off here, I have an old zombie that I made. I probably made this back in 2015 or so. And basically this zombie is designed to stand up and look like it's walking. And I made this a few years ago. It was basically a car crash victim. You kind of see the arms caved in there, the neck's broken and everything. I wanted it set up so that it looks like it's walking. There's no wires, there's no ropes, and there's no visible poles or anything holding this upright. What I wanted to do today is I wanted to show you a video on how you can make a skeleton stand upright like this in your display. As I said, I made this probably like back in 2015 or 2016. It has gone through many, like I normally put my stuff out at the beginning of October, and it's out all October. This has been out 4 or 5 months, and it's been through rainstorms, windstorms, and it still works well. I want to give you an idea of how to do this today. When you make a skeleton like this, you can have it just standing upright like this, or you can make it look like it's taking steps forward. It's all in how you decide to design it. Now, I just dug this out from my storage. It's looking kind of beat up because it is pretty old, but as you can see, it still stands upright, no problem. Maybe let's take a walk around. As I said, there's no wires back here holding it up. This completely freestanding, and that's what we're going to work on today. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to make a freestanding skeleton. Obviously you want a skeleton, and one of the things that I've been discovering lately is that the quality of skeleton does matter when you're making creepers or when you're doing things like this. Some skeletons have a lot of flex in them, like this is a skeleton. I don't know where I got it from, but it's a cheaper quality skeleton. The plastic's not as hard, the connections aren't as good. It's really, really flimsy. Like you see, there's a lot of flex in this rib cage. When you take a look at this rib cage, there's nowhere near as much flex. You take a look at the limbs. There's tons of flex in here. You can see there's gaps in there and all. This is not probably a good skeleton to use when you're doing these type of props. I mean, if you have nothing else, you can probably make it work. But it's definitely a lot easier if you start with a decent quality skeleton. I got the skeleton from Walgreens last year. It's very sturdy, works well, so I'm going to be using this one to show you what to do. So let's open this thing up. Now, what I'm going to be doing today is very, very basic. I'm just going to show you how to make a freestanding one. One of the things that you'll be able to do is figure out like different poses, have them doing different things, whatever really works for you. Alright, so I'm just going to go with freestanding, simple, like this. Now, you're going to get a drill and these Deckmate screws. I've got Deckmate screws. These are really good screws for when you work on projects like this. Take a look here. Now, it's got like a star bit in there. These are easy to drive. They don't strip very much. I've been using these for years, and these things work really well and kind of speed up all the different projects that I do. All right, so basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the different weak points, the joints, and we're going to be posing them how we want to. Like I said, I'm going really, really basic on this. I'm just going to be driving screws from the one bone into the other bone. I'll do one, like, might be able to get away with one screw, but I'm going to do two just to, like, for longevity. The weak points I'll be driving them into are the knees, the hips. If I'm posing the arms, I would also drive them into the arms. As I said, quality skeleton matters. Some skeletons have different weak points. Some skeletons, like this one here, there's a connection between the rib cage and this. And I've done this with a lot of skeletons over the years. Some work great. Some start to bend after a while. I have a feeling the ones that start bending after a while are probably cheaper quality skeletons. And it's not that big of a deal. You know, I just drive like a hole here, put like a little hook, and use a piece of fishing line. But I prefer not to have the fishing line, to have it perfect if I can. So don't pick places to drill the holes. Drilling from this bone into the other bone. Doing a pilot hole to get me started. The deck screws. Putting it right in there. Driving through the one bone into the other bone. Got a little bit of a connection. Do it on this side also. Okay, the screws I'm using for this are 3-inch screws. And that right now is solid. It's not going anywhere. And then I'll do the same for this knee here. Do the same for the arms. I'll come back and show you the arms and the shoulders. And then I'll do the other knee off camera. One thing is when you're drilling this, you want to try to set it up so that it goes into the bone and it's not exposed. I just drilled one, it was a little off-centered, and actually the end stuck out the bottom here. There are two things I could have done. One, I could pull it out and put it in someplace else, which is what I'm going to do. Or if I wanted to, I could take a little like Dremel cutting wheel, cut that off, and use that. One of the things is, if you do ever cut stuff off, you gotta remember that the metal is close to the plastic. Creates a lot of heat. You can actually melt the plastic, lowering the integrity of the plastic. So what I do if I'm cutting something like this, I'll cut it for a couple seconds, hit it with some water to cool it off, cut it, hit it with some water, and then just break it off, and that tends to work pretty well. So, like I said, just repositioning this, going in from a different angle, solid, and that's what we're looking for. Now, as you can see, the heads of the drill bits are sticking out. What I like this, there are a couple different things you can do if you don't want these to show. One, you can do it from the back, and if people want to look at the front, they won't see that. Or if you want to, you can get a little bit of plastic wrap or something and wrap it around there. It's called corpsing. You could just corpse a little bit here and a little bit there and just make it look like there's a little bit of skin still adhered to the skeleton in these spots. It'll cover it up. Actually, kind of looks pretty cool. Now, the next joint we're going to do is up here at the hip. I'm just going to drive through the hip bone into the leg bone right there. Doing my pilot hole. And this is one of the things you kind of go by feel. If you drill into here, you put the screw in and it's not as solid as I want, use another screw. If the angle you do it doesn't work the way you want to, do it from a different angle. But basically do it until you're pretty comfortable that it's going to be solid and it's not going to like break down in the middle of October after you got the display up, because you don't want to be wasting time redoing stuff like this. Now, as far as the deck screws go, there are different size deck screws. As I said, I've been using the 3-inch ones, but there's 2-inch, 2.5 inch, 1.25 inch. Just figure out what size works for you. I'm actually dropping down to 2.5 inches here because I do not want this going all the way through and coming out the other side. Actually, I'm going to drop down to 2 inches because I don't want this coming out the other side and having to worry about cutting it off or something like that. Just take the screw, find my hole. Put it in there. Now, one of the things I'm looking at this here, I'm noticing that there's a little bit of a gap there. I'll probably either take a 1/4-inch screw, drive it through there, just to make sure that this isn't a weak point that kind of screws up the integrity at a later point in time. The other thing is I'm looking at where these attach to the spine. I'm probably don't want to drill a screw into that and into there also when I'm doing this, just to make this a little bit stronger and a little bit sturdier. Like I said, I'm looking at this, the spine connecting to the hip bone there is a little loose. I definitely want to put a couple screws in there. make the connection stronger. Do my pilot hole, getting the deck screw. I'm probably going to use 2 here just because I can see this becoming like a major structural weak point, and I don't want any structural weak points when I do this. Alright, I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then I'll move up the body. So I've got the bottom part all screwed up to right about here. One of the things that I'm looking at, it's a little bit of flex here between the spine and this thing down here. If I were to corpse this and I was covering this up, I might get like a piece of PVC or a dowel rod or something and kind of create a brace around this, since the corpsing would cover it up. As it is, I honestly don't think it's that big of a deal, but it's just something to be aware of. There are probably other ways that you can fix this. You can unscrew this, like disconnect this from this right here, put a dowel rod down into there, epoxy it in, put this on the other half, epoxy it in, and that would give you a much stronger connection. But I gotta be honest, I think it's gonna be fine. Just something to think about when you're doing yours. Alright, so next I'm gonna do the arms. When you do the arms, you wanna go through the ball joint here, make sure you catch some plastic over here. Now, because there's no weight on the arms, you can definitely get away with only doing 1 screw if you hit it in the right place. Now this is a case where you want to use screws that are going to be pretty close to the size that you want. You're going to be going through, and a little point of the screw might be sticking out there. Like I said, you can cut it off with a Dremel. You can cover it up with like a piece of white tape or something, since it's inside, people aren't likely to see it. If you're corpsing it, it's not a problem at all. Just something, once again, to be aware of. Okay. And the arm's solid right there. And we'll do the same thing with the other arm. Now, one of the things to think about when you're doing this, oftentimes when I make these type of things, I'll do what I call horrifying the skull, where I put a lot, like I'll put clay on the skull and everything to like enhance certain features. Anything that you do to add weight could compromise this down the road. If I have a lot of weight on the head here, then that weight is eventually, there's a possibility it might start bending this over one way or the other. Just something to think about. I might be overthinking this, but I want to give you, make you aware of stuff like that. The other thing is, when you corpse it, the plastic wrap and the stain and everything that you do with it, if that's what you're planning on doing, also adds weight. It may or may not make it easy, like throw it off kilter a little bit. When I do these things, I like to get a little bit of balance. Like I might have one arm forward, the other arm backwards. It kind of looks cool, but you can have the arms up like this. But if I'm doing this, if I have both arms up like this, I'm thinking there's more weight forward. That weight forward might eventually start pulling this way. So later on, I'm going to show you how I put this in the ground. When I put it in the ground, I might put it at a slight backward slant to equal out the extra weight in front. The other thing to think about, if you want to make, like, you don't have to do the arms. A lot of these come with like a ratcheting system, and the ratcheting system allows you to block these into place without having to use screws. And since you don't have a lot of weight on them like you do on the knees, that ratcheting system's enough. Or if you want to make sure you can like just repose these all the time, you don't have to put the screws in. For this, I think today I'm just going to put the screws up here in the shoulders. As I said, one of the things is, you see the heads of the screws right here. I would just take a little bit of plastic, wrap it in there, heat it up, add a little bit of stain, make it look like there's just like a little bit shred of skin there, a shred of skin there, to hide them. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say plastic corpsing, there are good videos online. Stilpy Studios, Alan Hobbs has an excellent video on plastic corpsing. That's where I learned how to plastic corpse. I have a video which I'm going to be putting up later on today, which is going to give you an idea how to plastic corpse. And basically, if you want to cover these up, instead of doing plastic corpsing the entire skeleton, you're just plastic corpsing that one area. Okay. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how we put this in the ground so you get the freestanding look. Basically, it's pretty simple. We're going to get a 1/2 inch spade drill bit. We're going to drill through the foot into this hollow bone right here. And then we're going to get a piece of rebar. And we're going to set it up so put the rebar. The rebar is going to go in up to the top of the bone or so. And we're going to have about 6 to 8 inches sticking out. And this is what we're going to be using to stick this into the ground. This is actually pretty easy to do, and I'll show you how to do it right now. Okay, so you can see right here, a little bit of a spot where you can put your 1/2 inch spade bit. I got straight through there into the bone. I'm going to be able to drive the rebar right into there. I'm going to do the same for the other foot, but it is really that simple. I've already drilled a hole in this one, but I don't like how it's going in there, so I'm probably going to redo this. One of the problems is there's this metal pin going through, holding the foot into place and everything. I'm going to take the metal pin out, drill my hole, and just use a screw like I used for the other joints to hold this into place. So it shouldn't be a problem. Put some reverse. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna make it so that this goes a little bit more flatter. It means I'm gonna just have to like remount the hole a little bit so it lines up. Now I'll get one of those deck screws, drive it through, and I'll have the foot the way I want it to. All right, so what I wanna do now is I wanna cut the rebar down to the length that I want. You can get a 4 foot length, a 2 foot length. Basically you're measuring it out. You're figuring like you want to figure on 6 to 8 inches into the ground to give you that nice secure connection with the ground. Clamp it nice and tight into a vise like this. You always want to be careful when you're dealing with rebar. Rebar is really sharp, it's almost razor sharp. I found that out the hard way before. I've sliced my leg up on it, building a set of horseshoe pits. So be careful when you're doing this. You want to wear safety glasses. You got a lot of metal flying around. And I'm probably going to want to replace this blade with a sharper blade. That took a lot longer and was a lot harder than it needed to be. I've got it cut and ready to go into the base of the foot to set up the system to the ground. Now, one of the things I also like to do, there's a lot of friction there. So I'll just take some water, hit it with some water, cool it off a little bit. That way you're not doing the thing where you accidentally touch it and you burn your hand really, really bad. So there's actually another advantage to taking this foot off ahead of time when you do this. You can just slide this through and it makes it really easy to line this up with the hole here. Figure out where you want it and start hammering this in. Safety glasses. Okay, a little bit of a workout, but it's in there. So I'm going to show you how I get the rebar out in case I ever need to get it out. Normally when I store these for the non-Halloween season, I'll get some like Gorilla Tape and I'll tape up the edges. I just store it with those still in there. That way I don't have to like take them in and out. But if you ever find yourself needing to take these out, just get yourself a nice pair of vice grips, grip it on there, and then basically you're going to use this to hammer it out. Now, like I said, you got to make sure you have a nice tight grip. That was a little bit too loose. Try again. And it pops out just like that. Because I'm walking around here, I don't want to cut myself. Just getting a little Gorilla Tape, putting the Gorilla Tape on the bottom there. Just make it a little safer. To attach the foot, since we took the pin out, We're just going to drill a pilot hole through the leg bone into the foot. And then I'm going to use a 1 1/4 inch deck screw. Make sure that's where I want it. And still got the flexibility, but it's not coming off now. And basically, we've got this set up and almost ready to go into the ground. All right, now we've got the skeleton all posed and set up the way we want to. What we're gonna do is we're gonna put it in the ground. Now the secret to putting it into the ground is making the holes ahead of time. Get some sort of pin or something that's larger than the rebar and hammer into the ground. You want to go deeper than the rebar is. 1 or 2 more whacks. Pull it out. One of the things I always do is get like a stick or something that I can put in there so I know where the hole is. If you're doing this in a grassy area, it is extremely easy to lose track of the hole. Now, if you don't have this thing walking, you can put one up there, one back there. You can have it just standing side to side. Figure out what type of pose that you want, how far apart the feet that you want them. You know, you might find that the way that you have the pegs drilled in, there is a better way. Okay. A couple more whacks. I'm not kidding, even just turning her back around for a second can make that harder to find. Take the one peg out, pop it in, take the other peg out, pop it in, drop them in there, and you have a freestanding skeleton. And tighten up the dirt around the bottom there. But there you go. He's on a little bit of a hill, so he's bending over the one way. If he's on a flat ground, he'll be more straight up and down. That's all you got to do. That's how I make freestanding skeletons or freestanding zombies.